Hi there, my name is FixFox, and welcome back to this Factorio Deathworld run. Of course, we still have the Lazy Bastard achievement, but now that we have bots, that is less and less important. But we have hit some major goals, and we have a long way still to go. So we have built a wall, and we do have the outlines of what is going to eventually be some nice flamethrower turrets. The flamethrower turrets are active, they're hooked up, but we don't really have a lot of oil processing because we have exactly 2 pump jacks going on the map. So the first order of business is going to be to go and get some additional oil. We do have oil to the northwest, we have oil to the east. We have decided more or less that we're going to go to the east. I think, and this is going to be up for debate, this still remains to be seen, but I do believe that late game in this Deathworld run, if you don't claim the land now, you're gonna have to pay through the nose to claim that land later. So honest to goodness, I think that we might as well just get whatever land we possibly can. And so pump jacks are never going to go out of style. They're always going to produce some amount of resources, even if it's just really ridiculously low. And that's okay. That's okay. Even just a tiny bit over a long period of time is still going to be fine for us. So we're going to set off with our intrepid bots. Our bots are going to do the majority of the clearing of the space. As you can see there, we are trying to path through lots and lots of trees. Wherever there's no trees, I'm going to try and save my power because I just don't have the armor for it. I don't really have enough solar panels to truly justify being able to clear every single gosh darn tree. But in the meantime, we're going to make sure that the biters don't completely destroy us. We are more than 3/4 of the way to the easternmost oil patch that we're going for. And now we've run into our first main issue here. It's like, well, unfortunately, there is going to be at least 5 or 6 of these biter nests that we absolutely must clear out. They're going to be just a little bit too close to the railway anyway. I haven't typically seen biters destroy railway. They kind of more or less ignore it. I mean, not completely, but they ignore it enough that it's not the end of the world if you do have a biter move in close to it. But they have been known to attack many a time. Folks, in case you haven't noticed here, we have 1% of our HP left on this tank. And then we just ran into a different base. Do we survive? And by the skin of his teeth, FixFox gets away. You will remember this as the day that you almost caught FixFox. But it's still not too late to screw this up. Literally, I don't see a single slice of gray on that bar. And so the second that this little bot gets any amount of healing up, we instantly feel better. As soon as this moment happened, I knew that this was a good moment, and I had to make sure I shared that. So that was the epic tale of the time that FixFox also lost his second tank. This was probably the second or the third tank that I would have lost at this point. I don't know how many tanks we have lost, but yeah, probably at least the second, if not the third. Okay, so we cleared some of those initial ones that were to the north. This is also to the north of the railway, and then there's going to be 1 or 2 bases to the south that we absolutely have to crush. It's not going to be particularly difficult, but this terrain is not my favorite because I do struggle sometimes to see the big gigantic rocks, and the rocks do a pretty good job of slowing you down whether you like it or not. So eventually I would love it if I could just find a way to avoid the rocks altogether, but when you're out here in the wilderness, it's just not much of an opportunity. Now, this one's kind of interesting. I'm just trying to peel back this northernmost layer of that little base there. And you can see at the south there, there's 3 little biter nests remaining. I want to kill those 3 biter nests, and then I will leave the base to the immediate south of that completely untouched. And there's this one final nest here, and I decide, okay, if I don't get it right now, I never will. And I barely kill it with the last second as I'm walking out. If I had not killed it there, I'm almost positive I would have ended up dying for that base. So at this point then, I'm satisfied. We don't have too many issues with biters. I think that this base is going to be fairly safe, and I'm going to take great care to minimize my impact and rather my footprint on the pollution cloud in this area. Rather than try and defend this area very well, I'm just going to try and have the limited footprint. And so that's going to kind of explain why we have the green modules there. We're going to try to get as little power as possible. And initially, I even considered trying to use solar, but there's no real benefit to using solar in this sort of a case. Like, the pump jacks are still going to put out some sort of pollution, like regardless of whether or not it is power from your base or whether it is power from all the way out here. Like the pump jacks are still going to put out the pollution anyway. So initially I do try and use the solar, but then I just realized, you know what, that just means that my pump jacks are going to turn on and off day and night, and I'm not going to get enough of the accumulators out here to just keep a steady supply. So it's going to be a good plan, but ultimately it's going to be a bit of a futile exercise. Do note though, that there's like 6 or 7 of these oil deposits out here, and I'm only using 3 or 4. Yeah, I'm only using 3 pump jacks at the moment. I'm trying not to kill any trees. Again, all in an effort to minimize the pollution cloud as much as possible. That's really going to be truly the goal here. And so we are going to do more than double our oil output at this point. Once we start getting these automated deliveries up, then we're going to be able to bring plenty of oil back. This is going to, again, yeah, more than double our oil production here. And why is this important? It's because I've decided to set up the flamethrower turrets at home, and I don't even have enough oil to meet my production needs, let alone supply my base with the precious resource that will help me defend. So as you can see there, we still don't really have the automated delivery set up. Everything is still quite slow. As the oil starts to come on in just a little bit more, then I'm going to feel just a little bit more comfortable about my situation. But we've now got fairly okay defenses. By this point, I've decided that we're going to bring the power home on our return trip here. And as we do so, I'm just going to hope for the best, cross my fingers, and monitor the situation up here to the northeast, just to make sure the biters don't catch wind, get a sniff of us. Hope that they don't sniff the pollution and start to attack that exterior sort of outpost. Okay, and so with that, then I start to turn my attention back to more pressing matters. And really, the initial wall that I've built is not bad, but there's still quite a bit more to be done. We're going to get to that in just one second. I do notice that as I get some new things researched, for example, landfill in this case, I want to make sure I get some additional landfill working. You never know when you're going to need it, and we're going to need it in about 3 or 4 videos or so. So happy we did that there at that point. And then I had a choice. Which oil do you use to supply your flamethrowers? And typically what's recommended is that you use the light oil because it gives you the very best like return on damage. You get the best damage bonus. Heavy oil though, here's my thought. Late game, we can potentially just straight up bring oil in from Fulgora for free. Like crazy enough as that sounds, but I think that might actually be a good idea. I don't know. I've never really played a Deathworld into the end game sort of situation. But if I'm using heavy oil, then that's just like one less thing I have to crack. That's one little less use of my resources. I don't know. It's going to save the light oil that you would want to use for other products anyway. So let's do that. Okay, but at this point, I specifically put my wall where I did so that way the flamethrower turrets could attack and hit that. And what I'm doing now is I'm trying to prevent a forest fire. So I believe Smokey the Bear from America, like his I don't know what you would call Smokey. He's the mascot for not burning down our national forests. And he says only you can prevent forest fires. And at this point, if biters come up near these forests, then we are going to absolutely burn these forests down. So what I'm doing is I'm specifically trying to make sure that we don't burn the forests down. Unfortunately, I do have to cut down some trees to protect the rest of the trees. And so that's what we're doing right now. And that also has the extra bonus that in later instances, I'm going to be able to drive my car right outside of the walls, and that's going to be quite a bit better for me. I do note that at this point I'm like, okay, I've been operating off of like 5 or 10 of these bots in my hand. It's time to get quite a bit more of those. And so we clear to the north, to the east, to the west. We're working on the south here, but we didn't clear all of the east, and we're going to find out how big of a problem that is in just a second. Folks, we are now researching the yellow science and the nuclear portable fission reactor. Feels pretty good to me. And right about here, I realize, oh geez, I'm completely out of power. Like my bots are all just tuckered out, and I need to just sort of wait until they are no longer tuckered out. So we're going to try and fix that for later times, but we did not fully clear the forests like we had hoped. So now here we are at least 20 to 30 minutes later. We're checking back in on our base. It looks like the oil processing is doing just fine, or rather the oil collection. It's going okay. and the pollution cloud is not too big of a deal. We do check in on our nuclear patch. We talked in the last video about how I'm still struggling to get the best system in place to make sure we always have the right amount of sulfuric acid, but we do have 11 of these glowing green rocks. That is 3/4 of the way to the Covarex processing that we're going to need. We're going to expand some of our infrastructure. We're going to make sure we have the right modules for the future. That's going to include speed modules, which we didn't have before, and that's going to be important because at some point for I think it's power armor, or is it MK2 armor? I think it's MK2 armor does require, I think, 100 of the blue speed modules and 100 of the green efficiency modules. So nice to have those stockpiled just in case crazy things happen in the future. Okay, and in the meantime then, we are just gonna do something here. I don't need to do this, but I built a lot of defenses inside of the fence, and since we've made the fence now, I'm just gonna get rid of, it looks like, several hundred wall sections and like 20 something of these gun turrets. I just might as well. They're going to be somewhat redundant, and so we're just going to let the bots take those out. And meanwhile, we're going to add a second layer to the fence. I don't know. At this point, I don't know if we're going to end up using a third layer of fencing or not, but 2 layers of fence is at least going to be the general right idea. And now it's time to finally put in the gun turrets. I've mentioned in the previous video that gun turrets make a lot of sense to me, even if it's mostly going to be defenses done by flamethrower turrets, because then that gives something for the enemy spitters to kind of focus on. They will focus on the gun turrets, which are quite a bit cheaper than the flamethrower turrets, and so therefore they're much easier to replace. So I would actually much rather prefer that the enemy focuses on gun turrets, and so if I put them just in front of the flamethrower turrets, better things should happen for me. That's kind of my plan. And so we're getting up the kind of skeleton framework of these gun turrets, and then it's going to be a very simple sort of structure. It's going to be something that most people try to do when they first start playing Factorio. It's just going to be ammunition on a belt and then fed into these gun turrets. But rather than do a yellow inserter or a blue inserter, we're going to use the long-handed red inserters, so that way not if but when the gun turrets are attacked by enemies, that the red inserter is not also going to be damaged, because it's going to be one full section away from the gun turret. And so that way we're going to try to minimize damage. Again, we're planning on taking some damage. I don't think I can help it. It's going to happen. But we're going to just kind of stay out of the way for some of the other bits of damage. So lots of wall sections are going to continually be needed. Lots of extra gun turrets are going to be needed. And every time a gun turret goes down, that's essentially going to cost me 10 units of ammunition. At this point, I haven't quite decided if I'm going to use red ammo or yellow ammo, but we can tell for the first time the enemies have actually tried to breach the wall. And I say to myself, good job, Fox. Like, game sense and intuition and like timing matters. And it feels like we've hit the timing fairly correctly. That, okay, I finally got a little bit of defense up at right about the right time where the enemies are starting to really kind of tax the wall. That would have had to have been dealt with by some little pillboxes, and that just simply wouldn't have been enough. Okay, and as we're starting to get the big power poles here and just get everything hooked up, something horrible has happened, folks. I told you. I told you that I specifically wanted to cut the forest down in these areas just to prevent the trees from catching on fire. Smokey the Bear would be so disappointed in me. And I'm actually thinking that as this moment's happening. Like, if I could recreate this moment, I would be like, no, Smokey, I wouldn't let you down. And I will do anything, Smokey. I will do anything to prevent this forest fire. And I'm trying to cut trees down. I'm trying to make this happen. And I'm just being a little bit too silly. My health is down to like 1/8. No, Smokey, don't be disappointed in me. Death. Not my proudest death ever. Like, it wasn't to biters. How often do you see somebody die to fire? But I was that concerned about trying to prevent this forest fire from getting out of control, and ultimately I was just completely unable to. That just added a lot of pollution into the air, and it prevented a big opportunity to just soak in tons of the tons and tons of the pollution. So I'm very, very sad. I kind of give up on that eastern bit of the forest. That's just going to catch on fire. And then I just cut the trees to the north just to make sure that we don't bridge into some of those northern trees wherever possible. And then I more or less kind of give up and I say, well, it is what it is. And at least I called it. At least I saw that coming from a mile away. I just got distracted. I didn't do anything with it. So now, because this has all happened, I'm gonna go have to defeat that enemy base, but at the last possible second I see a huge war party going towards my iron ore processing, and so I try to head them off there, but I'm completely unsuccessful. They are gonna run roughshod over this area. Thankfully they're not going to target down any of the boxes that have the iron ore in them, and so by the time I get here the losses are limited to just like the military stuff. But if I had only simply just now set off to go try and defend this area, then the losses would have been, I don't want to say catastrophic, but they would have been they would have been significant. They would have been very, very significant. So happy we were able to kind of intervene before things got too much worse. And there we go, defeating that one base that was really causing us a lot of issues. But here again, we're starting to see kind of in action my defenses and how they're holding. They're doing an okay job, and yet still I am going out and doing a little bit of damage to some of the enemies, just trying to thin out the herd, as it were. Now this is a bit of a problem, and I think that this is ultimately going to be in the future a bit of a mistake. The more enemy bases you kill, the more the biter evolution happens as we run over to underground sort of pipes. I think that by doing too much damage to the enemy nests too soon, I might be inviting, I know I'm getting closer to disaster via green biters coming my way. That is coming on my way. I absolutely just know it. So we're gonna have to keep an eye out on that. But when that comes, I'm hoping that by that time the defenses are solid. Right now we have the ability to supply this belt with ammunition. We've got the flamethrower turrets that are going to do the damage anyway. We just got to supply the ammo. We got to hold ourselves to a high level of accountability if ever there is a breach in the defenses, and we got to go deal with that. But in the meantime, I'm pretty happy with this. I'm pretty happy with this. I don't think it's tileable. I don't think it's a scalable design necessarily. In the future, trying to expand that design is going to be not just a little bit tough, but like rather tough. Yeah, and so I hope that we never have to deal with a moment where FixFox says, buddy, I just didn't give myself enough room in the fence, prior to at least getting into artillery. Artillery is going to be the option where we can deal with enemies from a long ways off. So overall, it's a very successful video, very successful moment. We had a lot done, and I'm happy for it. With that, folks, I will say thank you, and I will plan on seeing you in the next one. Take very good care. Bye now.